It was such a weird fight because the referee kind of messed it up. But
Like, what do you, what do you?
if you look at the stats of the fight, that it looks like Tommy dominated, which he kind of did, but Tommy wasn't really throwing anything hard, so it wasn't really like affecting Jake like that.
So it just kind of like just outpaced him, just kind of
Yeah,
like
yeah,
outpaced him.
he outpaced him. He literally thrown double and landed damn near double punches too.
Better play cardio game.
Yeah, that's what me and Dom were talking about when we were talking about the fight before, discussing how it would go. We both agreed that Jake's last opponents just weren't doing enough. They were being too cautious, letting Jake just jab them and score and win rounds, and Tommy didn't do that.
That kind of plays into the whole like MMA fighter mentality when they box because a lot of guys, like a lot of the guys that he went against, especially like Tyron Woodley, they're more patient, like look for like knockout shots and stuff. As to where when you actually fight a boxer, you know, they actually box you like the sweet science. The footwork, jabs and stuff, and their constant movement. So I,
It kind of looked like what Jake was doing. Jake looked like he was waiting for a knockout with the check hook or the overhand.
Yeah,
yeah, he's like used to fighting MMA fighters.
Jake showed he kind of exposed himself because even if he did lose this fight, I mean, at least if you would have gone out there and you would have gone toe to toe with Tommy in a way that, you know, it was close in a way that he did get the knockdown, which helped him because if he didn't get that knockdown, those scorecards would have been even further apart in Tommy's favor. The knockdown helped. So there was a 10-8 from the knockdown. Tommy got deducted a point. Yeah, they were both deducted a point. So first, Jake was deducted a point for headbutting. What Jake was doing a lot is he was ducking down, and then he was launching his head up to throw like a hook to the body or an uppercut, and he was headbutting Tommy. And then Tommy, because Jake kept ducking like that, Tommy kept getting his hands hooked over on top of Jake's head and having him kind of like in a guillotine. And then Tommy was deducted a point for that later on in the fight. The whole fight was just weird. The ref just kept stopping them and warning them, and it was just like, let them fight, bro. Like, what are you doing? And I hate when the refs, like when they clinch, the two guys clinch, instead of the ref getting in there and breaking them up, the ref is like, hey, stop, stop, stop. He's just yelling at them to stop instead of actually breaking them apart. It's like these guys are just holding on to each other and you're yelling stop and they're tired, so they're still just going to hold on to each other. Your job is to get in there, push them apart off of each other, and then say box. Don't just stand there and yell stop at them and then get mad and call time when they're clinching and you're not stopping them from clinching.
Was there any like bad shots, like any bad like knockdowns, like holy shit, he's about to get knocked out?
Tommy took a few good punches. So here's really how the fight went. Tommy was landing more of the shots, but Jake, when he was landing, it was much harder. I didn't really see Jake get rocked. Tommy was just landing good jabs, good hooks, some uppercuts here and there when Jake was ducking his head. Jake was landing that overhand right a lot, timing Tommy's jab, landing the overhand right. And a few jabs too. Jake has landed some really, really good hard jabs that snapped Tommy's head back. And then there was that jab that caught him off guard and made him lose his balance and he fell. I don't think Tommy was hurt from the jab. You could tell his foot slipped out from under him, but it was a punch that caused his foot to slip out from under him and lose his balance. So it's considered a knockdown.
But you could tell Tommy has had like at least decent amount of fights, not pro fights, but at least amateur fights, because he was taking a lot of shots and really didn't really look phased by him.
Yeah, neither fighter really looked hurt. There was just a few shots that Jake landed that it was like scary. It was like, ooh, Tommy better not take another one of those, but then he would take another one and just eat it.
After watching the fight, do you agree like with the decision? Like how do you score it?
Yeah, I did think Tommy won the fight, but I just wasn't sure how the judges were gonna go with it because of all the deducted points and then Jake getting that knockdown at the end. I had Tommy up the first 2 rounds for sure because Tommy just completely outstruck Jake. Jake was landing harder shots. It depends how you score. If you're scoring based off of points, like who hit who more, Tommy hit Jake more without a doubt. But if you're just if this was MMA, those rounds would have probably gone to Jake because Jake was landing the more effective shots. It's just that Tommy was hitting him with like 2 jabs and a right hand, or he was triple jabbing him. Tommy was just jabbing the fuck out of Jake the whole beginning of the fight.
I mean, I guess it depends on like what the ratio is. Like if Jake's landing like the heavier shots, but how many? Like is he landing just like a few in the round or like one every, couple exchanges?
No, it was one here and there. And Jake, yeah, it wasn't that many, man. And yeah, I gave the edge to Tommy, but I thought they were gonna give, because those first few rounds they were kind of 50-50 rounds. I thought they were gonna give them to Jake, and then when Jake got that knockdown and when Tommy was deducted that point, I was like, oh man, Jake might have stole it, but they must have gave Tommy all those 50-50 rounds because of the output. He just outpaced Jake. Jake did decent. I mean, I think he looked worse than his last fights. He just did a lot of ducking. He made a lot of mistakes that, like, if he wasn't fighting Tommy Fury, if he was fighting someone with more punching power, he would have got hurt bad. Him ducking his head like that, he was so susceptible to uppercuts.
Man, what do you think's next for him? Like, who's he gonna fight next? You think he's done or like?
Oh no, he was calling for the rematch already. There's a rematch clause, so I think Tommy's gonna have to honor it if Jake, goes for it. But I don't think Tommy has a problem taking it because it's more money.
Yeah, if he loses that one, then what's next? You think he'll fall off after that, or?
No, I think he would just be as popular because he'll probably take a fight after that that's a big name. It's not really that good, and win, and he'll try and put himself right back in that conversation again.
Yeah, they're going to do the rematch because the rematch clause is in effect, so they are going to do the rematch. Jake is 100% saying he's pursuing it, and Tommy is gonna have to. He signed the contract, so Tommy's gonna have to do it, and he's not gonna turn it down. It's gonna be a shit ton of money.
Do you think that he could turn it around and like make the adjustments to win that fight?
That's the hard part, because I just don't think Jake has the gas tank. I just don't think Jake has the gas tank to throw out the output that Tommy Fury was throwing out. I just don't think he has it. And I think if he tries to, yeah, he might win a few of the earlier rounds, but he'll gas out quicker. He was gassed. He was sucking in wind hard towards the end of the fight. Really, that knockdown saved him because he would have lost that round too. That round that he got the knockdown in, that was the only thing Jake did the whole round. All the rest of the round was Tommy Fury. If Tommy doesn't get knocked down, he steals that round too. So not only did Jake, the round that Tommy got knocked down, he would have won that round. And the round that Tommy was deducted a point, he would have won that round. So the fight, if Tommy doesn't get deducted a point, and if he doesn't get knocked down, it would have been not even close. Not even close on the scorecards.
I would think if I was Jake, like I would take a fucking long time to build up my cardio. I wouldn't just like fight him in like another month or something.
Yeah, that's his downfall, man. Like I said, me and Dom talked about it. Like that's his downfall in these fights, in these boxing fights, man. They're marathons, not sprints, and unfortunately, those knockouts that he's had don't help him. And him fighting guys to the distance, but without having to really put in much output out there or really do anything, it's hurting him in the long run.
All right, well, then let me get your opinion on something. I want to ask you too, Dom, what your opinion is on this. Do you think that if Jake Paul had like Dustin Poirier level cardio, that he would win the fight, or was Fury just much better skilled than him? Do you think Jake could win that fight if he had amazing cardio?
Could he win the fight? Yeah, but in my opinion, he was just fighting. He was fighting I mean, the next fight, I feel like he would do better. But just this fight, it looked like he wasn't reacting. Like he was getting, like he wasn't really throwing. It literally looked like Tyron Woodley after he won the title. Mm-hmm. Like after he won the title, it looked like Tyron Woodley to where he was just boring, just trying to find the knockout or just like pacing for the win. Like it wasn't really like he wasn't going out there trying to win the fight. with high volume, or it
You
wasn't
think he
countering
was
well, in my opinion.
So you think he didn't look as good as he usually does? You think maybe like he was sandbagging his training? Maybe like he was like, "Oh, I'm fucking 3-0. I'm not gonna lose. I don't really got to train that hard or something."
Well, I don't know because I don't know what's going on in their camp. I mean, he did have a couple excuses, and maybe that could have been why. But he just like he literally said it. He looked flat. Like he didn't look like
He's gonna
like
be
his other
kicking himself
fights.
a lot when he watches the fight back because he looked terrible, man. And
What was
I
he?
know,
What was he? Was sick or something?
yeah, he said he got sick twice in his camp, and then I think he said also that he hurt his shoulder or something like that.
But his technique didn't even look the same though.
His
Like he
technique
didn't.
looked
He just
horrible.
he looked like a worse version of himself.
Yeah, there was like I said, he was doing a lot of ducking his head down for some reason. Like when Tommy would come in, Jake would just duck his head, or Jake would
Yeah.
duck his head, damn near basically looking straight at the ground and just swing a right hand. Sometimes it's funny because people make fun of KSI's form, like in his earlier fights, like with Logan Paul. There was a few times Jake Paul threw those windmill type KSI looking
overhands.
hooks. Yeah.
Yeah,
And they just
overhands and hooks.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And they would just Tommy wasn't even moving his head, and they would just whip over his head. Like Jake just completely would miss him. Like not even close. It was just Jake just looked terrible, man. He looked so bad.
Like what? If his technique was off that bad, like his tech, like to where he looks completely different, then I don't know if that's like that was him being sick, maybe because like if he looked like sharp in the first round or something, and then he just got tired because he was sick, then maybe. But like if he looked like that the whole fight, like even in the first round, his technique was just horrible.
Yeah, he didn't look too good.
No, it was like how me and Dom it looked exactly how me and Dom were talking about it. Jake doesn't know how to get hit yet. He's not used to getting hit yet, and he was tensing up really tight. And there was a few times when Tommy came in, Jake tensed up, and then you can tell Jake would swing like two body punches, and they looked like you were tensed up, and they didn't really have any.
Like
he
it literally
didn't have
looked
any
like
hit
he was
movement.
throwing with his eyes closed.
Yes, yes, and he was doing a whole lot of that. He was ducking his head, closing his eyes, and swinging the right hand, and he was tensing up a lot when Tommy was coming in. He wasn't really counter punching at all. He would just stand there, and Tommy would jab his way in and hit him with a right hand or a left hook. Jake just didn't look good, man. He looked like when you spar for the first time, and you're just so tense and nervous and you're just letting the guy hit you. You don't really know how to move. That's what Jake looked like. Jake didn't look like he didn't know how to move. He looked very stiff, very stuck in the mud. And Tommy was just moving around, jabbing him, staying at a distance, and just Jake didn't have an answer for it.
For him to do what he did against Anderson Silva and to look like this against, like he should have at least looked somewhat impressive in this fight. There's something's got to be going on with him. I don't know.
But I don't know. I don't think something's going on with him. I just think that he's not very as good as like his team and he thinks he is, and that maybe some people out there thinks he is. I just don't think he's really that good. He hasn't really. This is the first fight where he actually was in a fight. Anderson Silva took way too much time off during that fight. He wasn't doing enough. Same with Tyron Woodley. You look at those Tyron Woodley fights, they were extremely boring. Jake didn't really have to prove anything or do anything. Even the second Tyron Woodley fight when he got the knockout, Jake was losing that fight. He was looking like he would have done another boring fight had Tommy been a passive fighter.
This is the first guy to like bring the fight to him.
Yeah.
He didn't know how to deal with it.
Yeah, he didn't know how to deal with the combinations. He wasn't moving his head. He was going straight back.
He looked like he was like this was his first fight.
I don't think it was because he was taking easy training. I think the Anderson Silva fight probably got to him. You know, he probably, in his head, he probably thinks, you know, Anderson Silva's better than Tommy Fury in the stand-up. So Tommy Fury's not going to be no Anderson Silva, but Tommy Fury probably thrown triple what Anderson Silva threw in their fight.
I think that just startled him. Like how much he was really getting hit.
Yeah, you could tell he's just not used to getting hit, man. He tried. I mean, it was a good effort, but I mean, he's gonna say, and he already did, but he's just gonna say it wasn't my night. But honestly, every time he fights, it looks like it's not his night. It's not his fault, you know what I mean? He hasn't been training that long. There's only so much you could do with like 3 or 4 years worth of training.